Arizona's governor is vowing to take the fight for our immigration law, as we said, to the Supreme Court. So if she loses and the law is tossed out, then what? Does the federal government have any solutions? With me now is Congressman Bilbray. He's a Republican of California, also part of the Immigration Reform Caucus in the House. You know, it's interesting. I talked with one of the legal residents here, an immigrant who's here legally, and she says she feels like that she's just a pawn in a political game here, Brian.
Well, it is. And what's happened is that Arizona 2 years ago did the right thing, and everybody admits it, by requiring employers to e-verify to make sure they weren't hiring illegals. And the federal government refuses to implement that program for political reasons. And I think that if you did a poll in New York or anywhere else said, well, should you use e-verify, you'll see overwhelmingly. And Arizona is being pushed to defend their neighborhoods. This is an act of self-defense. So I think people across the board have got to understand that we got to start doing the right thing, like stopping employers from being able to get a tax deduction for hiring illegals. How about if we just start with that?
Well, wait, how do employers get tax deductions for hiring illegal immigrants? Explain how that works.
Well, what they do is they pay them a salary and they deduct the cost of the salary as a business expense. And what we're actually talking about is let's require them to use e-verify to make sure that they don't do that. And if they don't use e-verify, they can't prove that they didn't pay illegal aliens. And that's how you stop them from doing that. But just start with your tax code.
Practically speaking, I don't know how that works, because if you're taking that as a tax deduction, you'd have to have the supporting documentation. And if people want to stay outside of the system of paying personal income taxes because they don't have a social security number or because they're here illegally, nobody's going to be able to take a tax deduction. I don't get how that practically works.
How that works is that you get a verification number when you're an employer that you've checked your employee that person's legal. That verification number then is going on to your tax return to show that you made sure that the person you're taking a deduction for is actually legal. And
so
believe
if you're
me,
hiring an illegal immigrant, then you're not getting that number, correct?
No, yeah, you're not getting that number, and then the IRS is able then to get you for tax evasion if you deduct that expense. And if you do deduct the expense or don't deduct the expense, you're admitting that you knew they were illegal. And this is a very important thing, that we separate employers who are actively exploiting illegals. The people that are the source of the problem are not the immigrants as much as the illegal employers. And this helps to separate that. And using the IRS, using our tax code is something we've done great against criminals like Al Capone. Wasn't busted by the FBI. He was busted by the IRS.
Okay, so let me ask you, Congressman, because you're the head of immigration reform for the Republicans and you're looking at ways to move forward, you've got Nancy Pelosi's folks just emailed me today and said, look, she embraces immigration reform, but she wants the Senate to ask first. Should the House act first? Should the House tackle this sticky, thorny issue, controversial issue of illegal immigration?
Well, first of all, I represent a bipartisan caucus. I don't represent the Republicans. I represent all the people in Congress that are working on this issue from a enforcement point of view. So, and no, Ms. Pelosi should just allow Heath Shuler's bill to go forward instead of blocking it. Over 230 members of Congress have indicated their support. It could pass tomorrow in the House if she just allowed it to go through. We can also do things like the Sylvester Reyes and David Dreyer, a bipartisan bill just to upgrade the ID for Social Security cards. Why aren't she allowing those things to go through? It's because everything is being held. They're being held hostage for another amnesty scheme, and everything is being told that nothing will be allowed to move unless we legalize those who are here illegal. And once you do that, you've now created a whole new way.
Congressman, if that's the case, and there are people who are saying we're not moving forward unless this is an amnesty bill, I want you to name names. Who's saying that?
Nancy Pelosi. Right off the top, I'll challenge her that will she allow a bill without legalization, amnesty involved in it? Will she allow the Heath Shuler bill, which is a great bipartisan effort? Will she allow that? Sylvester Reyes, a Democrat who used to be the Border Patrol agent in El Paso. Remember, he's the one who taught us we really can do stuff. Why doesn't she allow that vote? And it's because she's being held hostage by those who want another amnesty.
All right, Congressman, it's good to see you. I appreciate your perspective on this, and it's good to hear that you're intent on seeing this issue move forward on Capitol Hill. Let me bring in Arizona State Representative Kirsten Sinema. She's a Democrat. So, Kirsten, here the judge blocked some of the more controversial parts of this legislation. practically speaking, what does it mean for state legislators moving forward, trying to cope with, no matter which side you're on, the issue of illegal immigration?
Well, I think that brings up a really important issue. And the fact is that states like Arizona have moved forward on this kind of legislation, misguided though it is, because we've seen no action from the federal government. So this really puts us back at square one in terms of deciding what can we do as a state to solve this problem while waiting for the feds to take action.
Nancy Pelosi is pointing out the money that the Congress just passed last night sends hundreds of millions of dollars now to the border to help with border enforcement. She says that she embraces immigration reform, but that it's really up to Senate Republicans to get this issue settled before it goes to the House. Practically speaking, how does our elected representatives in Washington, how do they move forward in a way that deals with